brain. Welcome into his frequency. Enter at your own risk. Come be at peace with me. Ask the Paul, where we rise and don't fall.
Welcome back to another episode of Baxter's Buzz. I am your host, Baxter E. Hall. Welcome to my brain. Welcome to my frequency. Enter at your own risk. Now, today I have a special guest with me. He is a DE&I strategist. He is also the Talent and Development Director for Ruth Ellis Center. Layton Price, also known as Mike Price. How you doing, sir? All right. Welcome to Baxter's Buzz.
Hello, Baxter. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Good to see you. Good to see you. I know we've talked about it, and I'm glad that we finally able to kind of jump in. And I always tell people selfishly, I have people on that I'm interested in. And so I got real questions. And as I get to learn more about you, I imagine that there'll be a lot of folks that'll benefit from the conversation as well. So I'm looking forward to jumping in. So if I understand correctly, you are from Detroit, right?
Yes, I am. Born and raised in Detroit, went to Detroit public school systems, and really love my city.
Okay, that's what's up. If we start at the current space, but you're at Ruth Ellis Center, which is doing some amazing work, and we'll get into that. But prior to that, talk about your journey through these spaces and sort of how you've gotten to where you are today.
I really like that question. It's not often that I get to talk about me and my journey, so thanks for the opportunity, Baxter. DEI and my journey, I think it really began back in like 1993 when I was about 9 years old. I think I started to really feel my social justice heartbeat like developing because at that time, Malice Green, which was a Detroit resident who was killed by Detroit police officers at the time. And when I was at that age, I really wanted to be a police officer, specifically in Detroit. And so as I was watching like how that case unfolded and to see that there were so many people who were advocating for the officers to not be held accountable was very, very frustrating to me as a child. It was traumatic to, one, learn that a fellow Detroiter was killed by law enforcement. I mean, I was young. I didn't even know that those things really occurred much. And so after watching that and seeing that there was so much pushback for the accountability of the officers, I really lost trust. I lost respect in so many different ways. And again, it was very traumatizing. So I wanted just to kind of start there because again, at that time, I just could only think about the unfairness. And then, once I found out that the officers were finally held accountable, I felt a sense of relief, but it took years for that to even become an announcement. And so I navigated life feeling uneasy. I felt pretty concerned about the Black community, about my father. And so I navigated, different spaces and school system, really learned a little bit about Black history and how things have evolved since the, civil rights era and a lot of the history that is in Detroit. So those are some of the things that really helped keep me grounded as a child. So fast forward out throughout the years, I really experienced a lot of different oppressive experiences as a young person, going to different schools, and watching my family navigate different systems. And ultimately, I wanted to think of ways to kind of really pour back into the youth. I wanted to find ways to support young people who had similar experiences and similar childhoods that I had. And so I, really couldn't figure it out. My mind was all over the place. It was hard for me to really develop a concrete professional goal. My mind, again, just was trying to recover from a lot of things that I experienced as a child. And so things were blurry. And so one day I found myself maybe 6 years as a security guard at a local university. And one day it just really came to me like, hey, perhaps you want to really find a career or start a career where you could truly work on supporting the community. And so I spoke to an advisor at a college, and they said, hey, based on the things that you're telling us, it sounds like you might want to consider human resources or human services. And so I thought about it and I said, hey, what is the difference? And basically the advisor told me one is more transferable than the other. So if you go into HR, you're less likely to, be able to move into human services. But if you study human services, there is opportunity in the future for you to possibly transfer those human service skills into an HR role. So Baxter, that was back in like 2009. And so needless to say, over the last, decade or so, I've been really taking any opportunity that I could to volunteer at social service organizations. I was a board member at a couple different human service organizations or social service organizations. When I had my first internship experience, it was in a community that primarily serves Arab Americans. I was selected that community particularly because I wanted to learn more about just cultural diverse experiences outside of my own. And so again, at a very early age throughout my whole journey, I've been really just seeking out opportunities to learn more, to figure out, what the community needs, and what I could do to really help support the community on different levels. And so again, I've spent a lot of time in different roles, from frontline all the way to executive level positions, and even as board members of a couple different spaces. So I could talk more about that, but that essentially is what my whole, background looks like.
No, thank you for that. So there's a lot to unpack in that, but the first question that I have is sort of your upbringing. Like you talk about, you being 9 years old and the whole malice green, it felt in the Black community, there could be a sense of, well, here we go again, right? And, before that, there were it was the LA riots, right? And, we could talk about the riots of, the 60s that were, that started here in Detroit. But why did it resonate with you so much? Is it what connected with you as a 9-year-old to where it started to really shape the way you viewed things?
I think I was born with the level of empathy that is above average. I think intellectually, I just had, high emotional intelligence. And so when I saw these things happening in the media or even in classrooms, so I was learning about people who were enslaved in some of my classes and people who were lynched in the KKK, Jim Crow era, things that were going on there. And I would leave the classroom upset.
Yeah.
Extremely mad because I knew it wasn't right. Nobody had to convince me. I just could see bloodshed. I could see dogs attacking, innocent people, and it just did not make sense to me. And I was not ever going to be accepted. I was never going to accept it. I just think that was really internal for me. It was just like, nope, unacceptable, and nobody can tell me different.
Yeah. I think you talk about the work that you did with the Arab Americans.
Yeah.
Again, one would say, you a Black man, right? You got your own problems. And, I think about myself even to this day, just trying to put pieces of puzzle together between myself, my history, right? The things that we can kind of track down. I feel like that's a full-time job, Mike. And I think it's amazing, very admirable that you decided you wanted to sort of learn about another culture, probably as you were still learning so much about your own, right? Speak to
Yes.
that, and again, why you felt the pull to sort of dive into a different culture and help service and be a resource for the Arab Americans.
Well, I really appreciate that question, because I never asked myself that in the way that you asked me, particularly like, okay, if you're learning about your own, how is it that you're choosing to step outside of your own to simultaneously learn more, right? I think because one, I think very systemically, I'm always curious about how one thing connects to the next and how that connects to the next. When I was in high school, ironically, I was in vocational or trade classes, and I took plumbing and pipe fitting. I'm not a plumber, however, I kind of am still, because
Sure.
looking for the leaks. I'm looking to plug the leaks. I'm looking to repair things, and this is
Sure.
connected to that. So, I'm laughing because it's just so ironic. But anyway, I just think I just have a unique way of thinking, and I'm always curious about what else don't I know? What else has, a potential for things that we're not thinking about? How does this connect to that? How can we all
Sure.
rally around each other and be stronger allies? I mean, I grew up in Detroit, and there is a high prevalence of Arab American folks there. And so they were my neighbors. They were the business owners.
Sure.
In my neighborhoods. And so I felt like, hey, we're neighbors. I only know negative stereotypes about your community. I don't like how it feels when communities only label certain stereotypes about my community. So let me take a look at the mirror and see what I can do, even within my own set of identities, to dismantle oppressive behaviors that even reside in me or my community.
No, that I love that. I can't imagine being, that thoughtful, especially at a young age. I went to Ferndale High, and one of the advantages that we had was that we dealt with so many different folks, right? We had a large white population, Black, Chaldean, right? Arabic. We had Mexicans, we had Asians. And so it gave me a really good feel for things. And I remember coming from Detroit public schools, where it was majority Black, and coming to Ferndale schools and being kind of like, whoa, what is this, right? And obviously it reflected much more of the world than Detroit public schools did, and it gave me a well-roundedness to help me prepare. But again, I think when you look at the human element and stop trying to look for differences and realize that we're more alike, I think that you figured that out early, and you wanted to say, okay, I know that there's more to you. I know there's more to your group, and I'm curious, and I salute you, and I've mentioned this a lot on the podcast. I think that curiosity is, like, for whatever reason, still a secret ingredient, but it's like for the successful people, curiosity is something that's like, when you look at the back of the packaging and you see, the first thing has more of that than anything, right? Then you get, look, curiosity is at the top of these packages for all of these successful people, one way or another, right? Because so many great things and great discoveries start with just a I wonder, right? And so I salute you for being that insightful and being able to sort of carry it over into your work. So now we'll jump ahead a bit. You know, you talked about dismantling oppressive systems. Tell me how you landed with the Ruth Ellis Center, and talk about the work that you all are doing there.
Yeah, so how I landed there and the work that we're doing. So first I'll start with the work that we're doing. So the Ruth Ellis Center is based in Highland Park, Michigan, which is very, nestled very central in Detroit. And so our demographics that we serve are primarily lesbian, gay, transgender, bisexual, or questioning young people up to the age of 30 who have low socioeconomic status. And we offer a lot of different services there: behavioral health support. Even we have a clinic in which we partner with Henry Ford Health System that is designed to support the unique needs of the demographics that we serve. We have housing, we have a drop-in center. We're actually about to open our first apartment complex, which will serve, again, young adults who have experienced homelessness and housing instability. And we're really excited about that. That will open up this summer, 43 units. And that is very exciting, very exciting. So we do a lot of work there. We offer workforce development, programming, and a host of other programs and services. And so I'll say Ruth Ellis, for one, Ruth Ellis Center is named after a historical member of the community who at one point used to house young adults who identify as LGBTQ. So this was actually a public figure who actually did this work. And so the center has been named after her. And very proud to be there. I've always admired the work that the Ruth Ellis Center does. Prior to being at the Ruth Ellis Center, I was working in Ann Arbor at a different nonprofit, providing services to folks who also experienced homelessness and housing instability. And I really enjoyed my time there. I'm still connected to the folks over there. I started a lot of the EDI initiatives within that workplace. And when I wanted to basically go back to my roots, go back to my native town, I had a very, very short list of organizations that I was going to apply to. And I saw a position at Ruth Ellis Center. I was overqualified for that position, but I was gonna take the opportunity to just get my foot in the door and see what I could do to offer, because I, again, really believe in the mission that Ruth Ellis Center has. And I applied, have been promoted a couple of times since then, and that was in 2019. And now I oversee the HR department, where I basically drive the equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives organization-wide, and as well as, really make sure that the hiring practices and the policies and procedures are really, put in place to advance equity for underrepresented groups. So I'm really, really excited about the work that I'm doing. So I really appreciate that question.
No, thank you for your answer. So what I've been hearing as of late is folks refer. So we've known it as DE&I. I've been hearing lately folks sort of leading with the equity piece, right? Talk about what equity sort of means to you, and sort of how you're ensuring that these things are played out with the Ruth Ellis Center, and then like the company and the department that you lead.
Yeah, really good question. There's so much I could say about what equity means to me. I know a lot of people have different understandings of what that means. Sometimes people even use the word equity and apply it to things that are contextually equality. They are not the same thing in my world. In my opinion, equity is basically a set of actions or things that help meet people where they are in order for them to access opportunities that other folks have opportunities as well. And so, I use the example of the food pantry. So I've held many positions over the course of my career where I've either volunteered or managed food pantries. And food pantries, great intentions is to help support communities who are, desiring to build more food to access to food. And so as a way to give more access to food, which supports nutrition and health, right? There are many food pantries that have a set standard way that they give the food out. So a lot of food pantries will say you can get 2 meats, 2 dairies, 5 canned goods, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. While in theory, that sounds fair. That sounds like you were giving everybody equal access. However, there's some challenges with that because not everyone eats meat. Not everyone eats dairy or could use dairy. And so in that space, I've always advocated for there to be, a set of standards that will allow people to actually self-select their choices. Because using an equality approach is leaving people out. That can be oppressive because, again, a lot of people don't eat all of the same things. So that's just one example that I use when I try to describe equity and what that means to me, and one example of how I've helped to advance equity within a position that I've held.
No, I like that. And it's very, very simple, right? Because what we consider as fair, right? It's like, well, this is just the way it is, right? We have the set rules and regulations, and everyone will get treated the same, but everybody's not the same, right? And you talk about meeting people where they are. I think it's so important because that's where that empathy comes into play, right? And saying, well, what if people are at different places in their lives or in their journeys? How do we meet, advocate, and help provide them with whatever resources that they need? And obviously, the Ruth Ellis Center has been doing that, but you've been doing that on your journey as well. Now, we could talk all day, but we're not gonna do this. But because we have other things to do. But I wanna ask you a question. Let me set it up. So Jerry Seinfeld was on this show with Letterman on Netflix. This was a handful of years ago, and he talked about talent being a horse. He talked about talent being a horse, and the way that you handle this horse will determine on how you'll be able to sort of handle your success that sort of comes with it, right? And that concept, I've been kind of obsessed with the whole concept since I heard this interview years ago. Because I kept saying, well, what's my horse? Like I hadn't thought about it like that. And I think that sometimes your horse can sort of carry you to different places, even if that's not your ultimate destination, but it may take you to a certain space where then maybe you get another horse, or maybe that, so and then I also try to simplify, and I think about like in basketball or even in football. It's like, okay, what's your go-to play? What's the thing that you rely on the most, right? When you think about yourself, Mike, what's your horse, what's the thing that you feel like, what's your, people call it like your superpower. What's the thing that you hang your hat on that you feel like you do better than you do anything else? It doesn't matter. We get caught up sometimes in worrying about what we do better than other people. I'm talking about what you feel like you do better than anything else that you do, right? I know it's a lot to sort of set up, but when you think about your horse or your go-to play, like your bread and butter play, like what do you feel like you rely on more than anything else as far as your skill set, your characteristics?
I think I have a unique ability to see what's unseen. One example of that is, remember when I mentioned how sometimes I will be in classrooms learning about Black history and the traumatic experiences that were in the books and in the videos that I also experienced in the classroom. And so I, as an adult, am able to look back and think about, wow, when in terms of equity and in terms of ways that we can even advance equity in the educational system, it's thinking about if you have a classroom full of people of diverse ethnic backgrounds and they're all learning about Black history. When they transition from one class to the next, who is more likely to have a harder transition into the classroom? Is it our Caucasian and white peers? Is it our Asian peers? Is it our Hispanic peers? Is it our Black and African American? I'm not saying that I know the answer to that one way or another, but the question itself is something that I don't know if administrators in academic settings think about that. We're thinking about pumping out the education, the knowledge, and I know there's even challenges around that. Like, should we teach them about this history? Should we not? What version of it? I think it all should be taught, but I think building in support for people to take in that information and be able to transition successfully into a whole nother classroom environment, a whole nother activity. What does that look like? So those are the types of questions that come to mind when I navigate this work. I often think about, what are we missing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of dots that need to be connected that we don't always account for. And I remember watching Roots at school, right? And I'm not old enough to remember like when it first came. I wasn't watching it in school when it first came out, but we all watched it. And you felt a way I felt a way as a young Black person, and then it's like, all right, we'll watch the rest tomorrow. Enjoy it. You don't even think about the support that you need psychologically just to sort of move on and then be thrust back into that like the next day. You talked about food earlier, and I think about anything that we are intaking, the people that we're around, the books that we're reading, the things that we're watching, the food, all these things have an direct impact on us. And we're not always very mindful of those things. And like you said, the young people that are trying to navigate these waters and learning about these things and not even knowing how to properly process what they're learning.
Right.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
That is a lot. And again, who's having these? I'm not saying these conversations are not being had. However, from my experience, those conversations are not being had, and some environments are not properly equipped to support the needs that certain groups have. And again, even thinking about a diverse classroom, there may be some students who are able to just bounce back and go to the next assignment, ace the exam. Like, are people even thinking about, like, all right, are we going to watch this video on a day of an exam?
You're absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just
But that
like,
comes to the pipe fitting piece, right? And being able to structure things in a way, you know, when people talk about systems and systemic pieces, you know, there's a lot to that. There's a, you know, there's these terms that are kind of, they lose their meaning because we hear them so often. But these are things that need to be accounted for. And yeah, that's a whole nother conversation, because I'm sure you have some ideas around that. And I definitely have questions, because you've sort of provided me with a perspective that I hadn't thought of. So thank you for that. I want to say this. I sort of overwhelmed when I think about the work that you're doing, the Ruth Ellis Center, you know, and so many others. You know, I'm in the process of writing this book, and I'm sort of writing it to my 8-year-old daughter. And when I think about the things that I want to leave her with, you know, community, you know, what is one of the pieces that I talk about is, you know, the importance of giving back, the importance of being able to meet people where they are, and don't put any judgment on folks, right? And I, every once in a while, you wonder if you're saying things the right way, or if you're emphasizing it. And this entire conversation has been a great reminder to me to make sure that I continue to challenge her and help her see these angles that maybe she's not seeing, because I think that the more empathy we can have, the better off we're going to be, just as far as like just human beings, right? And it really has to start at that human level, and empathy is really where it all starts. So thank you, Mykell, for your time, and just giving me so many gems, man. This has been really, really good.
Yeah, I appreciate you inviting me to have this chat with you. I'm always open and able to discuss a lot of these topics. So yeah, anytime you want to chat, feel free to reach out.
I love that. And to everyone that's watching or listening, just know that you all are capable. You just need to make sure that you are embracing your own frequency. So on behalf of Mykell, I am Baxter E. Hall, and till next time, peace.
Welcome into his brain, welcome into his frequency. Enter at your own risk, come be at peace with me.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't already, please hit the like button, please subscribe, share, and also hit that notification button as well. Thank you so much.
Financial literacy to authentic Black history, this real rap.